Program about to start. Program about to start.
Swimming Canada would like to thank our partners. Comité olympique canadien. Canadian Olympic Committee. Comité paralympique canadien. Canadian Paralympic Committee. Le gouvernement du Québec. The Government of Quebec. Mieux pour tous et toutes les façons dont Bell redonne aux communautés et au sport à travers le Canada. Bell for better and all the ways it gives back to communities and sports across Canada. Murtha Pools, toujours au cœur des sports aquatiques de haute performance. Murtha Pools, always at the heart of high-performance aquatic sports. La Société de sauvetage du Canada, votre partenaire de confiance en éducation aquatique et en prévention de la noyade. Life Saving Society Canada, your trusted partner in aquatic education and drowning prevention.
I have a disability, but I'm not fragile. My first big hit was a rush. It made me feel alive in a way only sports can. Because of partners like Bell, I get to feel it on the world stage. And now I get to share that feeling with the next generation.
Welcome back, everybody. Here we are, day 6 preliminaries at an already very exciting 2024 Bell Olympic and Paralympic Trials. Presented by Bell, I'm Jason Pratt. With me here this morning, once again, Brittany McLean. Fantastic swims last night, Brittany.
And it has to be highlighted by this world record performance by Nick Bennett. Now, we saw him break the Canadian record in the morning, and then at finals decides he's going to take about a second and a half off that world record. It was so thrilling, and he was obviously emotional. I also love in every single interview he does, he gives thanks and he honors his sister, his coach, the girl that has gotten him through so much of the journey. And I love the way he respects and admires her. I also love the work that they've put in together to get themselves to this place.
Oh, fantastic brother and sister duo with some great results in the pool. World record for Nick Bennett. Para men's 200-meter individual medley. We have all sorts of events for you here this morning on day number 6. We're going to start out with the 100-meter backstroke for our para multi-class swimmers. We have the 200-meter butterfly. We'll get to see Summer McIntosh. 200 IM for the men. Finlay Knox, recently crowned world champion. Joshua Aliendo will be back with the 50-meter freestyle before we finish off the morning with the 800-meter freestyle. First event up this morning is event number 319. This is 100-meter backstroke for the women. Para multi-class event. And we do have one heat that we'll see this morning.
And of that one heat, a few names to highlight here. So far qualified under that Olympic A standard. We have in lane 1, Shelby Newkirk. We have in lane 4, Katie Cosgriff. In lane 5, Aurelie Rivard. In lane 8, Katarina Roxon. And the cool opportunity about this event, it's swam by athletes S2 and then S6 all the way through S14. So for some of our S6 athletes, that's Shelby Newkirk, Ruby Stevens. We also have some of our S9 athletes. That's Mary Jibb, Kat Roxon. This is one of many, but one of few remaining opportunities to get on that Paralympic team.
Right, and so we've seen the athletes throughout the week move on to that stand, get their standby boarding card for the Paris Games. And we had a fair bit as of yesterday. Did we manage to get a few more on as of last night, or are we still sitting around that same number?
We did get one more added to that list. So there are currently 10 with their standby boarding passes. Our maximum we can send on this Paralympic roster is 22, so there still is a little bit of space. Of course, there's a selection committee that's going to make that final decision. The addition for last night was Alec Elliott. He's going to be coming up in the men's 100-meter backstroke, and that was a really cool story. I was chatting with him after, actually. He was mentioning that the 100 butterfly was his focus, but it came early in the program, and unfortunately, he did not get under that A qualifying time. So pressure was on last night in the 200 AM, and he was just under that qualification standard. So, of course, he was relieved and thrilled, but it's always fun seeing athletes just get under that mark, and especially in an event after they've gone through a disappointment and have to come back and persevere.
I always love the bounce back, so we saw that with Elliott, and here we go. Now finishing off this first heat of the 100-meter backstroke, Jamie Cosgrove in lane number 4 looks pretty strong, swimming for Oakville. 109.93 is her seat time. Right under that by a half second. A good swim this morning by Cosgrove at 109.45.
And it is an... Oh, sorry, we're just hearing S14. There you see Emma is thrilled. She just sets the Canadian record in the S14 100 backstroke. She is the Canadian record, was the reigning Canadian record holder, but goes a personal best time, therefore setting a new mark there out of lane number 3, Emma Van Dyke from Brock Aquatics.
Well, the old mark stood at 111.59. She was 110.99 this morning, 6/10 of a swimming. A very strong morning swim, kicking off day number 6 here at the Bell Canadian Olympic Trials.
And they are now ranked based on their para points. So that takes into account their classification, it takes into account their time, and of course it helps us kind of compare across different classes. But anything close to that 1,000 meter, we're in swimming terms, anything close to 1,000 points is an incredibly world-class performance. So strong swimming there to start off our program on day number 6.
Some good swimming by the women as we turn to the men in event number 320. We do have one heat as well in this multi-class event, and it will feature newly named Paralympian Alexander Elliott swimming in lane number 4 from CNQ, entered with a seat time of 103.77.
Yeah, and another name we've heard a lot about this week, Reed Maxwell from Edmonton Keano. He punched his ticket on the very first night here, so been able to kind of just race with no fear. There you see him, very tall. I was surprised when I saw him in person for the first time. He towers over the rest of us, that is for sure. Coached by Alex Wallingford, Edmonton Keano. He's S8 category, only 16 years of age. Definitely one of the future athletes on this men's para program that we'll have to keep an eye on.
Well, he's a Canadian record holder in this event, a time he did in Great Britain and Aberdeen early on in 2024, time of 109.48. That's what he's seated with. He's swimming in lane number 5 at the top of your screen. So off they go here in our men's heat of the 100-meter backstroke. We'll keep an eye on Maxwell. He's broken a few Canadian records. He did that last night in the 200-meter individual medley.
Yeah, but off like a rocket there. We see Alec Elliott. It must feel good knowing you got the job done last night. Hopefully he can keep an eye on his personal best time. He's entering here in a 103.77. For his classification, the qualification time is a 101.67, so still about 2 seconds off of that.
Let's see as we go through here the first 50 meters. Elliott looking pretty strong in lane number 4. He turns at 31.44 seconds. Off is very solid underwater. Look at this, Elliott right out to that black line. Black mark on the yellow lane lines nearing 15 meters. Maxwell turns second at 34.88. He'll need to have a pretty even split swim if he wants to get down to his record time.
And there's 2 times we have to keep an eye on for Maxwell, of course. The 109.1, which is the Paralympic qualifying time, and then of course this Canadian record mark, which is a 109.48.
So 105.05 for Elliott to the wall. He's followed by Maxwell on 111.09, swimming in lane number 5. Good morning swims here out of our top 2 competitors. Alexander Elliott from CNQ. Reed Maxwell from Edmonton Keano is lane number 3. Charles Gimichel makes his way to the wall. And in lane 3, time of 129.81.
And it is a unique opportunity for the Paralympic roster, but once they have their spot on the team, they are able to swim any events that they have the minimum qualifying time in. So there is a chance that we see both of those two athletes, Reed Maxwell, Alec Elliott, getting to contest in the 100 backstroke. Of course, if with their coaches they choose to add it to their program, similar to someone like Summer McIntosh, we talk about a lot about load management. That would be a decision between them and their coaches to decide what events make the most sense for them to add to their Paralympic program.
Well, and speaking of Summer McIntosh, it leads us to our next event, which is the women's 200-meter butterfly. We have 7 heats in this event, and we are going to get to see Summer McIntosh coming up in our 7th and our final heat. She is a Canadian record holder in this event. She's also the world's junior record holder in this event, a time of 2:04.06, something she did winning the World Championships back in 2023 in Fukuoka, Japan. The Olympic qualifying time stands at a 2:08.43. So here we go with our first heat of the women's 200-meter butterfly. Top seed in lane number 4, Charlotte Perceau from Camo, seated at 2:23.87.
And this is one of the events that it is going to be really challenging to get 2 women under that Olympic qualifying time. The time being 2:08.43. It would take a big lifetime best for anyone other than McIntosh to get there, but this is kind of the most exciting part about an Olympic trials is you never really know what someone's been saving out. Maybe we have a potential peak of an athlete that is ready to make their jump onto that international stage. We saw it in the prelims yesterday in the 200 backstroke with new personal best times. Anything is possible here, and that's the beauty of the event.
Well, and you saw the athletes as well pushing themselves and carrying each other along, pushing each other along, however you want to term it. You saw in the 200 breaststroke last night, you know, the race was decided by 1/100th of a second between Sydney Brigham and Kelsey Wog. 2:23.79, 2:23.80, both under the standard. A great race for both of those women to get to the Olympic mark in the 200-meter butterfly.
And that was a really good example of just pure relief. Both of them having to wait until day number 5 to get their spot on the team. Both veterans, of course, of Team Canada, but I don't think either of them cared whether they touched first or second. I think you wanted to be top 2 and you wanted that standard time. As long as they were under it, I don't think Kelsey was up at night thinking about the touch necessarily. She was thinking more about getting the job done, and we'll reiterate that throughout the week, how important it is to come and get the job done. Not always are you setting personal best times, but it is really about those standards and that racing neck and neck with one of your competitors.
Of course. And I did mean on the breaststroke, not on the butterfly. That's just happening now. But, you know, it's the same. Getting on the team is important, especially for these athletes that, you know, have been in the final, that have been on the podium internationally. They still have a number of weeks to go. It's not necessarily that important that the time is this or the time is that. Well, everybody wants to roll best time. Why wouldn't you? But getting on the team is the big thing. And we saw last night, we were waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally, Canada's most decorated Olympian, Penny Alexiak, managed to get herself on the team in the 100 freestyle last night.
She did. It was another really close to the wall finish, of course, just off that Olympic qualifying time, but she will get to swim the relay here for Team Canada. And a really solid swim there. 2:21.05. Elizabeth Cook.
Yeah, Layla's Cook from Club Warriors dropping 3 seconds to 21.05 to win that first heat of the women's 200-meter butterfly. We mentioned we have 7 heats in this event, so we'll see our top-seeded swimmers coming up in heats 5, 6, and 7.
So I've spoke earlier about, you know, the 200 fly being a bit of a challenging event. Often it's a bit of a mental hurdle for athletes. Jason, if an athlete's coming to you and they're about to swim a 200 fly, what is your words of encouragement? How are you telling them to go through this race?
Well, you know, if anyone is swimming a 200 butterfly and that we've worked with them, we assume that they've done all the necessary background work, and it's really about staying relaxed, especially at the beginning of that race. You know, you talked about it during our 400 IM, Brittany, both for the women and the men, just being able to get through that butterfly quickly, but floating through it, not expending too much energy. We talk about how the legs are such big muscle groups in the body, the biggest muscle groups in the body. They are oxygen sinks, and if you burn them out too early, you are really in a you know, in for some awful pain and towards the last end of the race. So if you can keep them relaxed, you can keep them floating up on the surface with your hips for that first 100 meters, and then start using them to drive through on the back end, then that's a really helpful approach to take in that 200-meter butterfly event.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the best way to put it is that term easy speed, right? You want to be fast. You do not want want to put no effort into your stroke, but there is this zip of your technique when you're feeling good, you're riding through the water. And we actually saw that out of our men's 200 butterfly champion last night, Ilya Haroun. His first 100, you know, he was in complete control of that race. He was under Canadian record pace, started to tighten up coming home, but I think we're saving the best performance out of Haroun and probably the best taper for this summer.
Well, you heard him at the end of the race. He is gunning for the podium. He's gunning for his ASU teammate and the French national champion on home soil, Léon Marchand. Pretty bold statement by our champion last night.
I think I called him the greatest French swimmer or the greatest French Olympian in the pool or something last night. And he really hasn't yet gone to the Olympics. And it's not like, sorry, he's been to the Olympics, but he hasn't won, you know, the same amount of medals as some of these other athletes that we token with that kind of status. But he broke the last standing Phelps world record. He's broke pretty much every American record in the NCAA program. He went to world championships and won multiple gold medals last year. So talk about athletes with momentum. Léon Marchand is one of those athletes, and going to a games in his home country is going to add a whole other element to that competition. And yeah, definitely a bold statement, but it's almost more fun when it's coming to your teammate. It would be a little bit different if it was just to a random international competitor.
So I'm sure he knows his teammate quite well, and a little bit of motivation between each other as we finish our second heat of the women's 200 butterfly. Lane number 5, 220.87 is the winning time. Megan Donnelly from Oakville, lifetime best for her out of our second heat.
And speaking of Léon, I did see that he did clap back a little bit at his teammate. He just wanted him to know that he heard the statement. It was heard loud and clear. I believe he commented in French. Yeah, rendezvous à Paris. That was his response. Rendezvous à Paris. So it sounds like it's on.
Yeah, that's great. Some good fun between two teammates in this event, and
that's truly, it doesn't matter where they're from or what they're doing. It's continuing to grow our sport, right? It's awesome to see. And often in swimming, we are a little bit more conservative. We don't tend to, you know, get into that fun banter. It's very, you know, you're my friend, I'm your friend. But you see it a lot in track and field where the personalities come out of the athletes. And so it is kind of fun to see it come out for some of these teammates, but rivals at the same time.
Well, and a lot of these international competitors at the top level, they know each other very well. And yes, they all do want to win. And I've heard it from a number of our women at the top of the game, whether it's in the backstroke from Kylie Moss and Ingrid Wilm, or even Summer on the freestyle, is that the competitors at the top of the world rankings, they all do respect each other. They all know and appreciate how difficult it is to get there, how difficult it is to maintain that rank, and how really on any given day the race could be going to one of their competitors.
Right, and it's this exactly what you said, mutual respect while also doing things your own way and taking your own journey. And some athletes in the ready room like to chat and befriend other people, and other people need to be serious and in the zone. And so it's acknowledging that everybody needs something different. But speaking of something different, a really great start out in lane number 1 of this race. Sarah Hardy with a 105.0
Pretty strong
at the 100.
Yeah, she's seated with a 221. Doing a heck of a job here at the bottom of your screen in lane number 1. She is 22 years of age. She's swimming unattached up here for our Olympic trials event as she comes now to the 3/4 mark. Hardy is still looking strong. She's got a bit of a challenge happening in 7 and 8. That's at the top of your screen. Hardy turns at 140.6, a 35.5 split. Second is Rachel Wigington from the University of Calgary up in lane number 8, turning at 142.66. So we could see a sub 220 swim if Hardy can hold on here. She's got 15 meters left to go in our third heat. She's seated at 221. Managed to get under 220 as she comes to the wall. Final stroke, 218.66 for the win. A 2.5 second drop from her sea time for Sarah Hardy in her third heat.
Big smiles. And a Wigington sibling.
That was Rachel Wigington from the University of Calgary Swim Club.
She's had a really great meet so far. Another time drop there for her.
Yeah, very solid. Younger sister of presumptive Olympic team member.
Lauren Wigginton, who we'll see later in the program. He swims the 200 IM as the 3rd seed this morning.
So another shot for him in an individual event.
Yeah, that's going to be a close one. The standard is quite tight, but it's what makes this such an exciting meet to watch.
So here we go with our 4th heat. Lane number 4 is Caitlin Liu from Etobicoke Swimming. She's the top seed here. Our final heat before we get into our circle seated, our top 30 swimmer. She's entered in a 2:19.80. Saw 2:18.66. That's the fastest time we've seen this morning in the women's 200-meter butterfly, and this is the 4th of 7 heats. As this one gets underway, pretty strong down in lane number 3. As Matej Higovic from the Preliminaries Swim Club. She's the ball first, 29.95. She's a half second up on Iris Tinmouth. Lane number 5. Tinmouth from the Comox Valley Aquatic Club.
And when we're thinking about butterfly technique and efficiency, you want to stay nice and low to the water. You can tell when the athletes are taking a breath, if they come up really high, it is slowing them down. It's adding to the process. It's adding a little bit of extra time. So especially an event like the 200 butterfly, you want to manage your breath control. You want to make sure you're not getting too high in the water.
Well, it's something that you talk about that, you know, in terms of the technique and not getting too high, not too up and down, and staying low in the water. You'd want to tell your swimmers to push their chin forward to breathe, as opposed to lift their head and look up. When they do that, the tendency is to drop their hips, and then they start to get in that up and down sort of stroke, especially with the youngsters just getting a handle on this butterfly stroke.
Well, and as you get more fatigued, it continues to get worse, right? The minute that you start dropping your hips and they get tired, it becomes more of a vertical stroke than it is a horizontal stroke.
Exaggerated. You're exactly right. So Emily Morissette in lane number 0 has the lead now. 105.2 at the 100, 140.6, 35 mid on that third 50. Should be able to see another sub-220 swim. Morissette entered with a 220.52, so anything under that 220 mark would be a good drop for her.
The rest of the heat still incredibly close, so it's always fun in a 200 butterfly watching who left a little in the tank. It looks right now Iris Tinmouth out of lane number 5, closing well.
She's closing very strong. We saw her second at the 150 wall. She was just a little bit behind Morissette. She's got the momentum here as she comes to the finish. It's going to be Tinmouth in lane number 5. 2:18.84, a drop. Really a full second in that 4th heat. Well, here we go with our circle seated heats. Number 3 seed overall, swimming in lane number 4 is Claire Watson. She's swimming unattached, 2:11.64. She is a couple seconds over that Olympic qualifying time.
Yes, but she does have a little bit of international experience already, which is great and a very big confidence booster when coming into an event like this. She swam at the Junior World Championship. She actually got onto that team based on a late scratch. I won't call it a scratch, but someone due to injury that had to pull out of the meet. So, but she made the most of it. She made the final in this event. She came 8th in the 200-meter butterfly at the Junior World Championships, and she currently holds the 2nd fastest time in Canada this season based on that result in September at the Junior Worlds.
So a good swim by Watson this fall. Those World Junior Championships happened in September. So with the best time of 2:11.64, she is a top seed here in this 5th heat. And we are off a pretty even field here as they come to the first 50 wall. Lane number 0 at the bottom of your screen, Peyton Lee. Sorry, that's Neela Klein at the bottom of your screen. Lane number 9, Peyton Lee at the top of your screen. Watson through first, 30.04. Followed by Brecken Gormley in lane number 5, swimming for Nepean.
And as we watch that underwater coming into the touch, it is important to note that in butterfly, you must touch simultaneously with both fingers or hands, but typically it's first with your fingertips. And it really is one thing that, as an age grouper, you get disqualified in. You see a lot of disqualified.
Time again,
yeah,
yes.
Exactly. It is a tough thing to learn initially, but once you're learning it at this level, we shouldn't see it happen too often. These athletes are very well versed. They know how to touch the wall and turn.
Pretty strong outing, a 104.44, 104.49. Only 5 100 separating Watson and Gormley in 4 and 5. Gormley swam all sorts of, from a pretty big program already this weekend. looking pretty strong here on the third 50 butterfly. She's moving past Watson now. She comes to the final turn. Let's see what kind of speed she carries in and out of that wall. We'll see how strong she is on that underwater on the final 50. Usually a telltale sign of where our swimmers are at. 138.88 and 139.87. She outsplit the field by a full second on that third 50.
And that's exactly what I was going to say, Jason. That third 50 is crucial in any 200, but especially in an event like the 200 butterfly. Instead of falling back, she made her push, and now it's her race to lose.
And Watson, though, not falling away. She looks good, and she is driving as well, trying to get back up to the ground that she lost. That's going to be lane number 5, a solid swim at 2:14.08. That's Brecken Gormley. 7/10 of a second up on Claire Watson, swimming in lane number 4. The top 2 swimmers in heat number 5.
See Brecken Gormley swimming out of the University of South Carolina. Wins our heat, our first of our Circle C to heat, so those 2 times should confidently make it through to the top 10 tonight. We'll have to wait and see if they push the pace on these next 2 heats.
So then we got Mia Forster, or sorry, not Mia Forster, it's Katie Forster swimming in lane 4 from Markham.
Beside Mia West.
Beside Mia West. 2:10.99 is Forster's time, so she is the number 2 Canadian.
And a few things to note about the athletes in the middle of pool for this heat. Katie Forster, who you're seeing on your screen right now, swims for Indiana University. She was second at our trials last year, so that got her a spot on the Pan Am team. She competed in the fall at the Pan Am Games, so her first senior international team. She'll have lane 4, as mentioned. In lane 3, we have Nina Mullen. She was the 2024 U Sports champion. She also competes here, not out of this very pool, but she does compete at the University of Toronto, so very close to home. And in lane 5, we have Mia West. She was another member of that World Junior team, also a member of the sister duo. 2 West girls were on that Junior World Championship team.
And so we are off. Forster in lane number 4 in the middle of the screen, right beside her, swimming above. That's Mia West from the Manta Swim Club. And West off to a blazing start here through the first 25 meters. Mia West entered in a 2:14.92. We've seen a 2:14.08, a 2:14.80 done in the previous heat. See how quickly they are through the first 50 meters. Looking for down 30-point low, 29 high, 29.4. That's Ashlyn Massey swimming in lane number 2. She's representing the Point Claire Swim Club. Followed by Mia West in lane number 5. Not that far back, just a 1/10 of a second at 29.5. Swimmer from Point Claire, Ashlyn Massey in lane number 2. She's seated with a 2:17.65. She's got the lead early on in this one.
She does look to be laboring pretty hard in that first 100, though. It could just be the way she swims the race. It could be her technique. She's definitely making a statement here, halfway point.
There she goes, 1:03.59. She's half a second up on West in 5, followed by Forster in lane number 4. Still very close. Those top 2 swimmers, lane number 3. That's Nina Mullen also sitting up there comfortably. She looks to be actually moving up. Mullen, after the first 25 in the back half of this race, starting to find her groove.
And what an exciting time for butterfly in Canada right now. I mean, we used to have, sometimes in this event, we didn't really have many international names. Now we have Summer McIntosh in the 200 on the men's side. We have Ilya Haroun. We have Josh contesting for the podium in the 100. And then, of course, we have the reigning Olympic champion on the women's side in the 100 as well. So there is so much to cheer for across the butterfly specialty here in Canada.
So some pretty good swimming in 2 and 3. We've got Nina Mullen making a good move at 34.4 on that 50. Drop back a little bit now, but Ashlyn Massey, who has been leading this one since the second 50, turned to 1:39.04. She's got the advantage. She sees she can get down to the 2:14.0s that we saw earlier, but here comes Forster in 4. And it is Katie Forster, 2:13.79. A great close by Katie Forster from Markham Aquatic Club, winning our sixth heat with the fastest time we've seen so far this morning.
And a 3-second drop from Massey. You see her there. At one point, she just looked sheer relief because it is a hard race, and to get to the wall is a celebration. But to take 3 seconds off your best entry time is a really big accomplishment, especially on day 6 of a competition like this. You have to assume she's done quite a few races already. So really, really great and gutsy swim there out of lane number 2.
Well, some nice drops in our sixth heat. This is our seventh heat. You see on our screen now, Summer McIntosh, reigning world champion in the women's 200-meter butterfly.
You see that yellow cap. She represents the Sarasota Sharks, coached by Brent Arkey. Only 17 years old. In my head, I keep thinking she must be, 18, 19. No, we have gotten to chat about Summer since she was only 13 and 14 now. An experienced 17 years of age. She holds a Canadian record across the 200 free, the 400 free, the 800 free, the 200 IM, the 400 IM, which she, by the way, holds a world record in, and this very event, the 200-meter butterfly. Her best time, a 2:04.06.
Well, not the fastest off the blocks here in this heat, but she sure made up for it on that first 50 at 28.80. Strong outing, but very controlled and relaxed. And you talked about those swimmers staying nice and low on the water. We got a prime example of that happening right now here with McIntosh in lane number 4. Very smooth, nice and tight on the water.
Right, and her chin barely gets above the surface of the water. Her breath is, arguably exactly what you want to see the breathing pattern to look like. You're not taking up too much time to take each breath. You're working with efficiency. You're staying nice and low, and her arms stay nice and low as well. It's a very kind of smooth stroke, straight stroke. If you could see me right now, I'm using hand gestures, but
I can see the picture you're painting for me.
Jason
exactly.
gets it.
Yes.
She stays nice and low. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of the Phelps technique.
Just sort of skimming over
Skimming the water.
There
Skimming. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, and she's a fantastic butterfly, but doing a good job beside her, though. Mabel Zavros, she's coming into this event with a 2:11.7, so a little bit over that standard. She has been close in a few events, and she is running a tough schedule of events all week long as well.
She is, and she qualified for the 2023 World Championships in the event being the 800-meter freestyle. She's also swam this event internationally for Team Canada. She swam this event at the 2022 Commonwealth Games, as she also did in the 2018 Commonwealth Games, representing the University of Florida as a post-grad currently with Josh Liendo and a few other athletes we'll see later on in the program.
So here we go, just a couple strokes left for McIntosh in lane 4, 2:11.16. A swim well within herself, 2:12.76 for Mabel Zavros. Sider in lane number 5. Those are our top 2 finishers in our 7th and final heat of the women's 200-meter butterfly.
And this is a race that you can't fully shut it down, Jason. We've seen Summer swim very relaxed morning swims, but it's going to take a little bit out of you no matter who you are or what you're doing. You can't just completely relax. You can see her do freestyle where she's just 100% composed. The butterfly makes it a little trickier, but she gets the job done here this morning.
There you see McIntosh, a top qualifier in the women's 200-meter butterfly, going into tonight's final. Event summary showing the A finalists, B finalists, as well as junior finalists.
And if you see a question mark beside their name, that means they're potential reserves or alternates. Sometimes it means there's a tie.
Might need a swim off. We'll see if that happens or not.
200 fly swim off we actually saw yesterday, and it's not a fun one. But the athletes, as we mentioned, you have to look at it the positive way, and it means you get a second chance at a swim. And second chances and repetitions, Jason, you mentioned yesterday, these athletes, arguably their best training they can do is putting themselves in a racing environment, is putting themselves under pressure to perform. And so no matter if you have one race here at the trials or you have 18, every race matters, and it's adding to that training environment that you're trying to emulate to get more experience and become a world-class athlete.
Well, especially for these youngsters here, because obviously, the Olympic team is only a very small few and select. It's just the nature of the beast. But for those youngsters moving on to whether it's their provincial championships, the summer regional event, or the Canadian Swimming Championships, all of the racing that they do here, a great cumulative effect working towards some year-end goals for these swimmers. We are underway now with our next event. This is the men's 200 IM, and we have 5 heats in this event. And Brittany, we mentioned this is day 6. You mentioned a little bit earlier about the challenges around day 5. What kind of challenges are there for these athletes in a meet that is, as long as it's in 7 days? We haven't really had a trials event this length in a number of years.
Well, for athletes that plan to peak literally on one day at a certain time, to ask them to peak across 7 days for different events is quite challenging. So luckily they would have had this schedule very far in advance. They work with their coaches on a plan. They develop a recovery strategy. They develop what the warm-ups every day look like. There's a routine in place. So in theory, you're just trying to execute a plan. But outside of that theory, it's easier said than done. So athletes will come into day 6 lightly fatigued. You can't let that get to you. How many practices have you done where you're coming in lightly fatigued? I'm pretty sure I never did a practice that I felt 100% great in. And you just constantly have to put yourself in these positions to be successful through a little bit of challenge. And so speaking of someone who's needed to be a little bit patient this week, we're going to see Finley Knox in this event. This is his big event. This is the event he won the 2014, wow, Jason, 10 years ago. No, he won the 2024 World Championships in this event. And talk about an exciting race. Everybody going into that field was not keeping an eye on Finley Knox. We thought it would be really cool.
He was in the outside lane.
Yeah, we thought it would be cool if he maybe challenged for the podium. And he just had the race of his life. He trusted his training. Again, talk about executing a plan with your coach. He stayed in his lane. He stayed in his element. He believed in the work that he had done, and he won the Worlds.
It's quite an incredible accomplishment from Knox, and you can see that all kinds of confidence that it gave him, because he just got better and better from that moment on, right up and through till, well, here, I mean, he went under the Olympic qualifying standard in the 100 freestyle, which he's always been a strong freestyler, but it's been something that, you know, it's been in his toolbox so he could execute on a relay, not necessarily individually, and that was really quite something, as a big eye-opener for me to see him go underneath that standard in the 100-meter freestyle.
Right, and those standards are based off of world rankings, right? So as fast as the rest of the world is, bases that number. And we truly haven't, I don't think in my career, seen 3 men under that Olympic qualifying time in an event like the 100 freestyle. And I know in your head the 400 IM is the premier event, but a lot of people have that 100 freestyle.
I think I'm the only one, but, you know.
I agree. I love it, and especially now that we have the world record holder in the event. I mean, how could you ask for more? But that 100 free is similar to the 100 track, the fast dash, the one event that everyone just can follow. You just have to watch them go 2 laps down the pool. There's often a really close finish. There's often a lot of excitement. It takes 50 seconds, less than, hopefully. So it is one of those premier events, and the fact that he is ranked so high in the world in that race bodes really well for his closing speed here in the 200 IM.
Well, just to give you perspective on this, Brittany, and how far men's swimming has come over the last couple decades, I remember watching the first Canadian challenge to break 50 seconds in the men's 100-meter freestyle, and that was a bit of a while ago. And, you know, our men in terms of 100 freestylers have never, they haven't really been there, but now we have, well, 3 have gone underneath the standard. We have an Olympic relay team that finished 4th. We have Josh Liendo, who's been on the podium internationally. So that event has come an awful long way. You know, for the blue ribbon event, as so many other people call it in the men's swimming. So pretty exciting to see where we all are. And some good swimming going. We shouldn't neglect what's going on here in the pool. 2:10.63 in the first heat of the men's 200 IM. That was Point Claire, 17-year-old Justin Fontaine.
Well, we talk a lot about how the breaststroke maker breaks in IM. We have to keep an eye on Oliver Dawson in lane number 4 for this breaststroke leg. He was our champion in the 200 breaststroke earlier in the program.
So let's just take a look. Dawson sits in 9th place currently. 2.9 seconds back of the leaders at the 100, and you can see him making his move now in lane number 4. What a heck of a swimmer. 2:09.17 is his entry time for Dawson out of Grand Prairie, a northern Alberta community. Coached by his father, Alex. Getting to the 150 wall with a 34.7 split. That is, well, that's the same that Finley Knox splits on his breaststroke when he wins the World Championship. So a good split there by Dawson. He's up in 2nd place now, chasing Nick Duncan in lane number 3 from the University of Calgary. Duncan having a good go at this one as well. He's seated at 2:09.37. But here comes Dawson. He's made his move on the back half of this race, and I think it's going to go to Oliver Dawson, Grand Prairie in lane 4. New best time for him at 2:07.34. Heat number 2.
And that is definitely an example of having a strength and using it to your advantage. I swam the Tour de Dayam completely opposite. I tried, it was actually my first ever Olympic trials cut, what came in the Tour de Dayam. Also the first time I ever broke a national age group record came in the Tour de Dayam as well. And if you're listening now and are wondering who the heck I am, I swam distance freestyle for Team Canada. So talk about specialization at a young age. It is important to do it all. And unfortunately, until the breaststroke really caught up with me, that was kind of my bread and butter event. And I love swimming this race because the Tour de Dayam really is a 50 sprint of each stroke. You have to be smart. You want that easy speed that we've chatted about in the Tour de Fly, but it gives you the opportunity to just really give it a go across all 4 disciplines.
We saw Lauren Whittington on the screen. We'll see how he does on this one, sprinting flyback, breast and free. He's very solid in his 400 IM. You mentioned he was just off of his best time, just over that Olympic qualifying time. Showing an awful lot of resilience in the 200-meter freestyle event. He's not really known for. He ended up in the top 4, potentially on Canada's relay, and he's solid in this event as well. I mean, he's our number 3 seed overall at 159.44.
Yeah, and I think when you look at a training program for an Olympic year, I think a lot of their coaches think about these relay events. They think about having more opportunity to race on the international stage. They also think about having that backbone to be able to fall to if you miss an individual event, and this was a perfect example of making the most of the opportunity. Lauren Wigington, he won a bronze medal in this event at the 2023 Junior World Championships, and we've talked a lot about that Junior Worlds team, but he's really picking up the pace for someone that specializes in the 400 IM. He's got quite a high turnover here on the backstroke. Well,
this is a bit of a surprise. 25.9 on the butterfly, and he's accelerating through here to the 100 wall at 56.0. It's actually a half second faster than he was when he went that best time of his at 159.44. So I think he's trying to make a statement in this one, because coming up in the next heat, Tristan Yankovic, who beat him in the 400-meter individual medley, and then of course world champion from 2024 in our last heat, Finley Knox.
Yeah, and for Lauren here, you know, he's building into the meet as well. Similar to what we said about Summer, as the meet goes on, you're getting more rested. So he's gonna have a little bit more pop in his stroke. He's gonna feel a bit better in the water as the week goes on.
And here we go, 1:31.9 through to the 150-meter mark. Just a few tenths of a second over where he was in the World Junior Championship. So his fly was round about where it was, about 7 tenths faster on that backstroke. So he seemed to be testing out that front end. He does here on the anchor. You know he's got all sorts of endurance. We saw a great 400-meter freestyle in the preliminaries and a awesome 200-meter freestyle at night. And here we go with a solid finish by Wigington in lane 4, 2:01.42 here on heat number 3.
I would say start to finish, just a really strong race for Lauren. Obviously not a lifetime best, but a strong morning swim, a performance to stand up on day number 6 in a long program for him. This will be an event he can have fun with tonight. You know, he's gotten a spot on the relay team. He has potential to maybe get an individual event. Unfortunately, didn't happen in the event that he thought it might. But this one being kind of his underdog event, he can have some fun with it and see what he's able to do.
Well, interested to see what we get out of Yankovic here in lane number 4. As we mentioned, he is on the team. He made the cut in the 400-meter individual medley, just missed the Canadian record by a couple tenths. He's entered here at a time of 1:59.05. Here's the middle of your screen in lane number 4. And there we go with Yankovic.
And we do have an empty lane in the middle of the pool, which you don't see too often. That's Ben Lowen in lane 3. Chose not to swim this one. I was going to say he's the U Sport champ, but is not going to be contesting here this morning. We do have Tristan, as mentioned, the 400 IM winner already here in the program. And then beside him, Blake Tierney, who's having arguably the meet of his life at the moment and touches first at the 50.
Yeah, and we saw Tierney last night. He's won the 200-meter backstroke in Canadian record time. I think if anyone was looking to see Tierney down at the Canadian mark, it would have been in the 100. So a bit of a surprise, but a pleasant one at that. He's looking very good on this backstroke. I love the tempo of Turney in lane number 5 on the backstroke. Nice and high on the water as he comes here to the 100-meter mark. 56.0, that's right where we saw Wigington in the previous heat. Just a couple tenths back is Yankovic. But look at this pull out by Yankovic. Up and by Turney through the first stroke. Yankovic really moving through the first 25 meters of breaststroke.
So smooth, and he represents the Ohio State Buckeyes. Sophomore there at the NCAAs in 2024. He made the A final in the 400 IM, which is quite the task to do. He said a lot about the benefit of going to a yards program. He's gone through racing yards. He understands his underwaters. He's worked a lot on his details, and that pullout was a great example of working a lot on your details.
Well, 31.46 is the split time at the 150-meter mark. 35.2 on the breaststroke. And we talk about the difference maker that breaststroke can be, is even as it is in the 4 strokes at the very highest levels, having a strong breaststroke split off of a strong front end, it's not easy to do. Somebody who's mastered that, we're going to see that up in the next heat, I think, Finley Knox, as we come to the close of heat number 4. It is Yankovic in lane number 4. Fastest time this morning, 2:00.56.
He just, he looks strong in the water. I know that's not a very good descriptor, but he rides the water really well. He has an efficient pull, and coming through that final stretch, you can tell that he's tall. You could tell that he's strong, and he makes the most of that. Often with athletes, you have to keep an eye on where their technical elements are, but talk about details, talk about Tristan Yankovic. That's something that is very obvious when he swims through the water, that he's worked a lot on technical elements, and that he is strong and obviously in good shape. When you're swimming a 400 IM going 4:11, you got to think he's in pretty good shape.
Well, absolutely, and in good shape, and demonstrating that all week so far is lane number 4, reigning 2024 world champion. He did that World Championship in a Canadian record time of 1:56.64. He's already underneath that Olympic qualifying standard of 1:57.94 this year.
And one more note on Yankovic too. He actually was entered as one of the top seeds in the 200 backstroke, but opted out of it. So you have to think that was a choice that he thinks he could potentially swim this event individually as well at the games this summer.
Well, that would be incredible. Knox was our lone qualifier in Tokyo in this event. Fantastic to see 2 of these men underneath that cut. I mean, to put it in perspective, the cut is only a second over the Canadian record, so it is pretty darn quick at 1:57.9. 25.0 split for Finley Knox in lane number 4.
And I had the chance to catch up with Finley when he was here a month ago at the Canadian Open. He spoke really highly of his coach, Scott Talbot. Of course, Finley used to train here at the High Performance Center, Ontario. Now he's relocated to the High Performance Center, Vancouver, a bit closer to home for him. He said he's found a lot of balance in life. He's swimming for himself. And one of my favorite stories is that he just recently got the Olympic rings tattooed after the Pan Am Games. And to him, it was a symbol of acceptance of his accomplishment of qualifying for the Games, and not necessarily his initial disappointment in not performing the way he wanted to. And I think with a lot of these athletes, there is pressure on the Olympic Games. One thing to qualify and another thing to kind of set the standard for yourself. And I was definitely an example of an athlete that went to an Olympics and left disappointed. And you kind of have that mixed emotion where, yes, you're proud to be there, but you can feel disappointed. So the fact that he's celebrating his accomplishment of being an Olympian and going toward these Paris Olympics has an extra bit of motivation coming off his World Championship win.
Well, I really think that's a testament to the kind of athlete that Knox is. It's not just about being there. He's looking to perform, and he's steadily performed better and better at the international level ever since that Olympic Games, and obviously culminating in that World Championship title in 2024. Looking very good here. 1:30.8 is his split time at the 150-meter mark. You can see him here cruising into the finish. He's got Colin Gagne beside him in lane number 5. As he comes to a 2:00.80. He's going to qualify second, but that's okay. He's going to be in a middle lane. Gagne will be in there as well.
Yeah, Gagne is actually the 3rd fastest so far this year. His time set from the Pan Ams in October. Now, Gagne is an athlete that has gone to multiple international meets for Team Canada. Just missed again in the 400 IM. That is more of his, the event that we keep in mind when we think of Colin Gagne. But that was a really cool moment from last year, getting to have multiple men under the cut in the 400 IM. So it's rotating. These IMers in Canada, it's kind of different names every year, keeping us on our toes. Yeah, it really is. That's exactly what you want to see. The sport continues to develop, and nobody's spot can be taken for granted, truly.
Well, you know, you want to see that depth because those youngsters on their way up keep the older vets on their toes. And we talk about older vets, but let's just bear in mind that, you know, Finley Knox is a vet. He's just 23 years old.
Right.
When you see the top men in the world swimming into the late 20s and even 30s, when you consider Lochte and you consider Phelps, he has plenty of years ahead of him. And the hope is a lot of these youngsters will keep him on his toes and keep him honest when he comes to these meets. But I think there's a lot of self-motivation on the part of Finley Knox. I don't think we really have to worry too much about that.
Well, and getting to be on the national team with athletes that swim your events, you know, if you're not training together often, it really is this added level of competitiveness. You don't know what their program tends to be, and you can learn things from one another. You can share ideas, you can share your process, and I think it just all elevates the depth within our country in swimming. And I know for me, some of my very best friends that actually last week stood beside me on my wedding were athletes that I competed against. I wasn't even on their teams, not club teammates, but they're actual people that pushed me in the sport, and that's what brought us. Words are hard this morning, Jason. That's what brought us so close, and that's what's so special about this sport is that it transcends beyond just what you do in the pool.
Well, it's great to see, and get to see a little bit of that as we have a lot of camaraderie with these top men. Coming up our next event, we turn our attention now down to the scoreboard end of the pool for the 50-meter freestyle.
Splash and dash.
Splash, the mad dash for the cash. It's going to be the 50 free, and of course, you can't talk about the 50 free without talking about Joshua Liendo, Canadian record holder in this event, a time of 21.61, a pretty quick Olympic qualifying time of 21.96. We've only got one man who's been underneath that cut in the last little while.
Yep, that's exactly what I was just going to say. We like to start by setting the tone with that Olympic qualifying time, so you're at least aware going into it. But yeah, 21.96. Josh, the only one that's been under that before. Of course, an event like this, though, 2/10 really makes all the difference. So if you can drop a couple tenths off your PB, you might be there.
And we're going to get some swimmers who have been swimming very well this week up into our heats. Yuri Kissel, he's the #2 seed overall. He's just a little bit over that cut. He's less than 2/10 away from the cut, 18/100ths. You know, we parse that out pretty close because 18/100ths can still be a fair margin when you're talking about the speeds that these men are traveling down the pool. It can be, you know, it's a significant amount of space.
But when your name is Kissel the Missile, you gotta think he's gonna have some fast speed.
You know, and
T-shirts he made?
You know what? The story is this. He never made those T-shirts, and he was unaware of them. Some of his former teammates, I think, led the charge on that. I think a shout-out to Savannah King, coaching with McGill. Got an ex-teammate of Kissel's, got a few of her friends together and made those Kissel the Missile T-shirts.
I'm actually looking across the pool right now over to Tom Johnson, brother of Cascade coach Dave Johnson.
He's got one of the Kissel the Missile shirts in his hands, ready to wave on one of his former athletes in our later heats.
Take your marks.
Talk about a legendary swim family, too. Two of the most decorated coaches in Canadian history happen to be brothers as well.
And I think between them, I can't remember the number of Olympic Games. It's 5, 6, or 7, but the Johnson's staff members from 76 all the way up and through to 2020, the last games. Here we go with heat number 2. 24.29 is the winning time out of lane number 5. That's Alvin Chan, swimming for the Canadian Dolphins. Underneath his seat time by a couple tenths of a second. So Yuri Kissel sits second at 22.14. He's followed by Edward Fulham-Holt, time at 22.26. And Liam Weaver, 22.63. And then Ilya Haroun, we're going to see him in this event as well. He's seated at 22.66.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he pulls off because, again, that natural speed comes very well for him in the yards program, but we haven't necessarily seen it as much long course, and he hasn't really had the chance to swim on the Canadian relays freestyle-wise over the last couple of years, so it'll be interesting to see if he shows his speed here this morning.
Well, what's interesting I find about Haroon is that he did go 2 seconds underneath his seed time. Granted, I'm sure that seed time in his 100-meter freestyle was a little bit old. It was 51.6. I'm not sure where that came from. Obviously, he's a younger age grouper, down to 49s. I know he's been there on the relays before, but he is going to be off the blocks quick. His underwater is world class. We're going to see him out to 15 meters, I'm sure, at the front with the leaders. What he can do in our later heats. That heat, 23.99 out of lane number 6. That's Parker DeHaze from the Cascade Swim Club. He was the winner of the junior final last night of the 200-meter backstroke, putting his name in contention for the Junior Pan Backs later this summer. So a good swim.
Well, and we talk about how hard, you know, a 10th or 2 is. He just took 4 tenths off in a 50 free. So really, really great swim for him. Nice
swim by the 16-year-old from the Cascade Swim Club, Parker DeHaze. On to heat number 4. So heats number 9, 10, 11 will feature our top 3 seeds. Those are the top 30 swimmers in this event.
Take your marks.
So we talk about the underwater, and if you look on those middle lanes, the yellow lanes, you'll see those black rings. Those mark 15 meters. If you're looking at the outside lanes, whether they're green or whether they are blue, you'll see yellow markers indicating you're either 15 meters from the finish or 15 meters from the start. So this one goes to lane, heat 4 goes to lane 2, time at 24.10. New best time for Newmarket Stingrays, Lucas Amaral.
And we have 11 heats this morning, but I'm just looking quickly at how close our non-circle seeded heats are. Only 18/100 separates the next heat when they enter with times of 23.93 all the way through 24.11. So we expect the fields are going to just continue to remain quite close here.
And just watch as well. Very interesting to note the wave that follows these men behind them as they come to the finish is going to get bigger and bigger the further we go along in this event.
Well, we talked about strategy in the 100 freestyle with breathing, but really in the 50 freestyle, at this level, we should expect no breaths, maybe one if it's a part of your strategy, but it is a 23-second race, so you can do it without breathing.
And I think there were no breaths out of lane number 7, 23.71. That's Victor Dagenet from Cam O. Best time by him by 0.2 of a second, so a good drop. Win heat number 5.
That was one thing as an age group swimmer that every coach, if they see you take a breath with 5 meters to go in a 50 freestyle,
that's a big no-no.
That would never go over well.
A big no-no, particularly in that event and the speeds you're traveling. This is heat number 6 now. Our top seed is swimming in lane number 4. Logan Pack entered in 23.85. So we talked about 18/100ths of a second in the previous heat being the spread. In this heat, it's 6/100ths of a second.
I picked the wrong heat to mention it, Jason. That is so close.
Well, very close again. There we go, looking good in lane 4. It is Pack. 23.85 is his seat time, and wow, there is no difference across the pool as they come to the finish. Who's going to get their hand on the wall first? It's lane 0 at the bottom of your screen, 23.87. Francis Brennan. It's a win for Brennan from the Belleville Beast. Sorry, that was heat number 6. Benjamin Winterburn, I'm getting ahead of myself, from the Kingston Blue Marlins. Best time by him by 2/100ths of a second, 23.87.
When the races only take 23 seconds, it is kind of hard to keep track of them all. A great swim there. We love our outside lanes when they take the opportunity and make the most of it. Faster than his entry time, just by a couple 100ths of a second.
Well, these margins are getting tighter and tighter as we go, as we come to the final heat before we get to the circle seeded heats. This one's close again. Your top seed in lane 4 does represent the Granite Gators. That's John Gian, time of 23.79. Interesting to see if we get any breakout swims out of these non-circle seeded heats. It's pretty good movement there in lane number 6. Ahmad El Tawi. from London Aquatic Club, entered 23.80, 23.31, a half-second drop. That's a significant amount of time in the 50-meter freestyle.
He's still got a full beard. That's a race that makes a difference. So you talk about the preparation of these athletes. One of those pieces of the preparation is usually a large shave down. So everything you can to make yourself just that much faster.
So the shave down, something probably not too many non-swimmers are familiar with. I mean, what is the purpose of removing all of the hair of your body?
Well, Jason, I wish I knew the science. Part of it is genuinely about feel of the water. When you're used to having quite a lot of body hair, and then you take it off, you just move through the water in a whole another level. Now, I also think there must be some scientific research done that it actually helps. But for me as an athlete, it was such a mind game of knowing I saved this one perfect shave and one perfect performance for peak, and that's definitely what helped me.
So there's some subjective feel to it. For sure, it does feel different, and that triggering the peak performance. Here we go in lane 3, 22.85. That might have just been the swim that we were looking to see out of some of these early heats. That is lane number 3, Justin Baker from North York Aquatic Clubs. That is 0.8 of a second underneath his sea time.
Wow. And he just walks off like nothing happened.
Looks like he is happy with that one. Now, heat number 9, the number 3 seed overall from Point Claire in lane number 4, Edward Fulham-Hook, is a teammate of Joshua Liendos at the University of Florida. Seated at 22.26.
Take your marks.
He's in lane 4 with the blue cap. Finished 13 in this event at the NCAA Championships. And talk about a close field. That event comes down to 1/100th of a second. He looks really strong in the middle of the pool right now.
Looked very good. Had a solid outing in that 100-meter freestyle, just on the outside of what it took to potentially be named for the relays. But he looks really good here in lane number 4. 22.25, a new lifetime best for Edward Fulham-Hook, winning heat number 9. He's got to be happy with that.
Yeah, and after not placing in the top 4 in the 100 individually, this is his best shot to try to get to the Olympics, or arguably his last shot to try to get on that Olympic team. And to have someone to train with like Josh Liendo, you think those two challenge each other quite well.
It seems like there's a bit of a competition here between who can get out of the pool the quickest and the most casually, sending a statement to the rest of their competitors.
And there's Kissel the Missile, 2-time Olympian, almost getting ready for his 3rd. Really cool story. He took a bit of a break last year, and he says he's swimming for himself now. He seems to be loving the process, and this game's going to be a little bit extra special for him.
Take your marks.
And Kissel looking very serious there, but probably one of the most entertaining interviews you will ever have if you get to talk to him outside of the pool. Very funny young man, Yuri Kissel in lane number 4. Really is all about the business right here. 22.14, he's the closest to that cut on the outside of it at 21.96. And Kissel, 22.11. Great swim by Yuri Kissel. I think that's a lifetime best time for him.
Definitely in the last year since he started his comeback. But again, talk about athletes that have been around for quite some time. He's been on and off the national team, but mostly on since 2014. So that's now a decade of experience for Kissel.
Great swim by Yuri Kissel at 22.11. That sits as our fastest time in the men's 50-meter freestyle. But here we go, and there he is on your screen, Joshua Liendo.
Yeah, Liendo,
record holder,
the winner of the 100 freestyle earlier in the program. He also is the NCAA champion in this event in the 100 free and the 100 butterfly.
Watch the start in the middle of the pool. So explosive coming off those blocks.
Josh Liendo really has fine-tuned those details since being at the University of Florida. He's worked on his starts and an exceptional speed through the water. Look at him travel. And
look at that kick powering it behind him. What a fine motor with Joshua Liendo. 21.96 is his cut. 21.72. Great swim by Leandale, just outside the top 10 in the world so far this year, but what a fine morning swim. Liam Weaver, he finishes second. That's a lifetime best for him, 22.57. He swims for Cascade and the University of Toronto.
And that
swims in the middle of the pool.
Yeah, that time is under the Olympic qualifying time. 21.96 is that standard. He's also relatively close to his Canadian record mark of 21.61, so only about a tenth of a second to drop tonight if he wants to get that Canadian record, but shaping up to be quite the final in the men's 50-meter freestyle.
You see the event summary on the screen, A final, B final, juniors as well. Olympic qualifying time out of this morning's preliminary swims by Joshua Aliendo. 21.72, just over his Canadian record mark by 11/100ths of a second. Not much of a margin. Go back, talk to his coach. I'm sure to try and refine a few things before coming into this evening's session.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the prelims. You know, when you have a chance to improve upon things, sometimes it really is just, okay, let's do that again, just do it a little bit better. Sometimes it really is a confidence thing. You had a strong preliminary swim. It's not necessarily a go back and change a bunch of things. It's resetting. It's re-looking at, I say re-looking, but I really just mean watching the recording. So you have a chance often to watch the race. They're going to look at their technical skills. They're going to look at the starts. And in this race, you're not looking at a turn, but in some races, you're looking at the turns and you're pinpointing what are the things you want to work on. But there are quite a lot of times where you're happy with the way the preliminary went. You just want to do that again. You want to do it again just a little bit better.
So shifting gears now really to the opposite end of the spectrum. It's going to be the 800-meter freestyle for the women. Now our top heat will be swum tonight in our final session for the top juniors as well as the top 10 seeded women overall. So we're going to have 3 heats this morning. One of our shorter sessions for the 2024 Bell Olympic and Paralympic trials.
And I hope you're with us in your Saturday morning coffee. It's a quick one, so stay the course. There's only 3 heats, as Jason mentioned. Now, this is an event that is interesting. Talk about load management. Summer McIntosh, the fastest in the world this year by, I think, about 3 to 4 seconds. She also holds a Canadian record in this event. This is an event she's chosen not to contest here at the trials. She has to really decide what her program at the games is going to look like. Talk about working with your coach. It's going to be a fine science to figure out what McIntosh swims at the games this summer.
And more than likely, the speculation is that she's not swimming the 800-meter freestyle at the Olympic Games. Who knows? We will see.
I like to hold on to hope, Jason.
I would like to hold on to hope, and I am sure our international viewers watching it would like to hear that she is not swimming. Is probably good for them and the rest of the world that maybe she isn't, but she put up a heck of a swim early on in February, time of 8:11.39.
And again, the path for summer being with this event specifically, I was telling everybody I knew that, okay, if she's not in it at trials, she can't swim it at the games. But there is one caveat, and it is if we do not have 2 people under that FINA A standard or the Olympic qualifying time, unfortunately, which we would love to see 2, but this is a race that it isn't as likely that we see 2 Canadians under that standard. If we don't, Summer has been way under that standard already within the qualifying period this season. So technically the spot could, because she's already named to the team, go to Summer. So she still has a decision to be made, and we are left at the edge of our seats figuring out what they decide. But you know, I would love to watch her swim this event, but she has such a busy program, and her coaches have worked really hard to fine-tune it over the years. They have gotten this. She's, although only 17, she's quite a professional when it comes to load management. She has a strategy in mind when it comes to every race. She's really, really good at getting out of the pool and going right to the warmed-up pool, acknowledging that if she's going to contest in 4 or 5 events at the Olympic Games, it's going to come down to those small details, and she's going to have to do everything right outside of the pool as much as she does everything right inside of the pool.
Well, that Olympic qualifying time, as you mentioned, Brittany, pretty fast. 8:26.71 is the cut. Emma Finland is closest to that. She has already punched her ticket for the games. She did that in the open water. She has yet to qualify in a pool event.
And that was such a cool story. One of my favorite parts about watching those Pan Am Games, and she was just outside of the mix She was one spot shy, and then they did the reclassification with continental spots, and Australia, New Zealand weren't going to be using all of their spots, and so she was next in line to take it. And so what a whirlwind 48 hours it was for her, because initially you get the news that, okay, I'm just shy of my goal, especially in a race that's 10 kilometers, so that's 2 hours of racing.
The margin was next to nothing between her being in and her being out automatically before, just as you said, they took a look at those continental spots. So.
And yeah, to be able to, I was able to speak to her a bit after, and she said, you know, having her parents there, traveling to watch her compete was a really big difference maker. Initially, to have them to comfort her after not qualifying, but then also to have someone there to celebrate with her when she did qualify was really, really thrilling. And yeah, an awesome thing for us to have another Canadian in the open water events, because the last couple games we have had some really strong competitors in open water, so it would have been a little bit disappointing if we didn't have anyone there, but luckily we do, and there's an athlete to cheer for. Her name's Emma Finland. She'll be swimming the 10K, and hopefully after tonight maybe she'll contest in one of the pool events as well.
So she was top in the 1500, and we'll see her later on tonight in the 800, leading the way through the first 300 meters of our first heat. So as this is a time final event, we are swimming at fastest to slowest this morning, and lane 0, Tori McClensick leads the way. She's seated at a 9:08.93 through 300 meters. She's at 3:20.7, so she's lapping down at 1:08s.
Tori had a really strong 1500 already in the program, so not surprising to see her take this heat out.
Did a pretty good job. She can keep on this pace. She should be able to contend against that seed time of hers. It sits at 9:08.93. And so McClensick now here at the halfway point at 4:29.26. By 3 seconds ahead of Helen Ann Sava. Sava is the top seed in this first heat. 9:01.79. She swims for Raymac.
And important to note for the distance sessions here, every race is counted toward the final tally. So these are timed finals. It does not mean they have to qualify through to anything. They've got one shot here at these Olympic and Paralympic trials. And when we watch the A final later in the session this evening, all of these times are going to be contested against them. So if you're winning this heat, there's a likeliness that you might sneak into the top 10, whether it's 1 or 2 bumps up. But right now, Tori continuing to look strong in lane 0.
So lapping pretty consistently is McClensick in lane number 0. She's coming here to the 500-meter mark. 4:29 at the 400, 3 seconds up on the field. It looks like she's gaining a little bit of ground on these other 50s. A couple tenths on each and every one of them. She turns at 5:38.12. 300 meters left to go. The second is still Helen Ann Sava. She is 4 seconds back now in lane number 4, followed very closely by Ellie Couture, swimming in lane number 2. Couture from Red Deer, Catalina.
And we see with the distance races, different strategies across the board. Of course, I said yesterday, I love watching kind of the building into each 200. And it also is just a good kind of wake up your body into a different gear where they flip. Getting ready to flip to the 600 is where we tend to see a final push, right? You want to get the legs back involved. You want to get your tempo up a little bit higher. You want to push the pace a little bit more. And Tori's still staying with 34 lows, which is great to see. Her legs are very relaxed at the moment, though. She's got a nice high tempo with her arms. Swims for SFU and Dorval Swim Club. Her coach actually was one of my first coaches over at eSwim. Or sorry, her dad, Chuck, coached at eSwim in my early days. I remember when she was born, which is crazy now to watch her at 22 years old racing.
So Chuck McClensick, her club coach. You can see her SFU coaches on the side of the pool right near where she is here in lane 0, the bottom of your screen, waving her on with 200 meters to go. You're right, those legs are floating. We'll see if she can pick them up here. She's on the last quarter of the race now.
And entered with a 9:08.93. She's still on pace to go faster than that.
So we'll see what we get out of her as she's Didn't gain any additional ground over that last 100 over Sava, swimming in lane number 4. She's second. A few seconds back at 6:51 at the 600-meter mark. Picking up a bit of ground. That's a nice split there. 34-3 for McClensick, and Sava splits 34-2.
You can see when you are in the outside lane, it is important to stay, if you can, off the wall, and she's being smart. Still centered, not right on the lane rope, but you definitely want to distance yourself from being in what we call the gutter as you race a race like this.
So here we go. Bells being run for Tori McClensick in lane number 0. She's got 100 meters left to go. 7:56.29 is the split. Might be getting 9:04, 9:05 out of her, depending on what she can muster here over the last 75 meters. Helen Ansava moving nicely as well in lane number 4. She turns at 8 minutes. The last couple 50s for Ansava, who sits second. Ellie Couture is sitting in third in lane number 2. Coming to the last wall now for McClensick in lane 0. She's at the bottom of your screen, so she's been swimming on the outside, out ahead of the rest of the field this entire race.
Dropped it down a little there, 33.91. Helen Ansava also 33.60. So the final push here for our race leaders.
And so they're both trying to pick it up. You can see the legs come into action now here in lane 0 for McClensick. She's added them in nicely at just the right time. 4/10 of a second drop on that last 50 with 15 meters left to go. McClensick in lane 0. She's got a seat time of 9:08.93. You're going to see a nice little drop here for her as she comes to finish in a time of 9:02.10. That's a nice drop from McClensick to win heat number 1.
Yeah, and this final push means even more for these athletes because this is the last of the distance events here. So if you are a distance specialist, this is likely it for you here at these trials. So there's one thing about emptying the tank for any race, but then there's a whole other thing of emptying a tank when it's your final race of the meet all together. Great to see there, a good time drop. She seems happy, waving over to her teammates, saying thanks for cheering me on, thanks for supporting me. We're already getting set. We'll also have to keep an eye, on that time when it comes to the finals
tonight. See how it fits with the top 10 being swum tonight.
And I'm sure Byron and Rob will do a great job of keeping you in the loop on where she'll finish, but definitely putting herself in the mix when it comes to the top 10 here at the Olympic and Paralympic swim trials.
And just a reminder for everybody, it's going to come to a conclusion sooner than it has the last few days. We do have a 5:45 p.m. pre-show for a 6 p.m. start. Catch all of the final action on CBC Sports Online or the GEM app.
And what a team we have here. Just a special shout out to Byron McDonald and Rob Snook. They've really been taking through these finals with excitement and knowledge. And I love getting to listen to their call, especially Rob on that world record swim. He was so excited, and I think we were all feeling the excitement. That's all I could ask from someone when I hear their color commentary and their play-by-play. But what a duo, what a team, and they're going to be the team going to the Olympics this summer. So if you're watching Olympics, as we hope you are, you'll be hearing those two familiar voices on the call in Paris.
So plenty of swim action still to happen over today and tomorrow. Lots of action to happen later on this summer as we all get ready for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. Top seed in the heat number 2 is swimming in lane number 4. Kaya Dimitri from Kishu. She's 16 years of age, entered in at 9:15.56.
And in lane 6, we have Mariana Cabezas-Garzon. We've seen her win almost every time trial she's done so far this week. We also saw her earlier in the 200 butterfly, so quite a double here today to do the 200 butterfly and the 800 freestyle.
She's swimming all of the big events this week, isn't she?
She is, but when you're 15 years of age, I love watching that. I think it's so important to both get the race experience, also still continue to be versatile in which events you swim. She's gotten the toughness. It's going to create a little bit more of, that extra I guess, oomph to stand on when you're walking through the deck and being able to say, I can do the 200 fly and 800 free in the same day. I can do the 400 AM and the 400 free. Staying strong across those, arguably what we consider some of the toughest events in the program, I think creates really a special swimmer. Maybe I'm biased, though.
No, I think you're exactly right. And I think what is important for our viewers to note that you see, our big names in swimming, whether they're Josh Liendo or Kylie Moss or whomever it happens to be, I mean, Josh Viendo, you just saw him rip it up in that 50-meter freestyle, one of the top 10 times in the world. I remember seeing him swim the 400-meter freestyle as an age grouper. I remember seeing him compete as a 200-meter butterfly at a very high level as an age grouper. He certainly wasn't pigeonholing himself, and his program wasn't pigeonholing him as a 50-meter freestyle very early on in his career. He swam a wide variety of distances, all of the strokes, and very important, as Brittany says, for all of our young swimmers to have that kind of background. It really puts them in a good position later on in their career.
Absolutely.
So here we go with 200 meters of this heat done. Kelly Key has moved into first in lane number 3. She split 2:14.77. Solid 35.50 on that 50. Molly Fleming from Killarney, we saw her have a pretty good 1500-meter freestyle. She's right up there and even. Swimming in lane number 1 at the bottom of your screen. She's now moved up in front with a 35.0 50 split as they're coming now to the 300-meter mark. It's Fleming out in front of Kelly Key swimming in lane number 3. And Fleming coming in with a sea time of 9:17.94. Kelly Key from the Winskill Dolphins entered 9:16.34. As you mentioned, that top seed is Dimitri swimming in lane 4 from Kishu. She's got a seed time at 9:15.56. And it looks like we've got a few of these swimmers here biding their time as we move to the halfway point. See if any of them can pick up after we go through the 400. That is 300 meters gone, and 25-100 separate lane number 1 and lane 3.
And this is one of the great examples of a race where someone pushing you can do you wonders, but also someone setting the pace a little bit slower than we're used to can also, unfortunately, go the opposite direction, right? And so if you're used to lane 4 and you're going in expecting that they're going to be out in a certain pace and they're not there, that's why it's so important to swim your own race, right? And stay within your own lane. And coaches will always remind you of that, but you want to go with the feel of the water. You want to go with your tempo. You want to go with the splitting that you're used to practicing in your workouts, and less about what the rest of the pool is doing. Now, allow others to push you for sure, but you don't want someone setting your pace for you that's a little bit slower than you know you're capable of.
Well, Cabezas Garzon is now, with that last 50, moved into the lead. She's at 4:00.55 to 350 meters. Cabezas Garzon from eSwim, 15 years of age, seated at a 9:16.88. She's going to take the lead. She's got the lead. She's maintaining that now through the 400 meters. 4:35.53.
It looks like the 200 fly was a good warm-up for her. She's just building into this race at the moment. Every 50, she's dropping down now into the 34-second mark.
That's a heck of a statement, having the 200-meter butterfly as your warm-up before the 800-meter freestyle.
That's what we did at provincials, Jason, so why not test it at the Olympic trials?
Well, very well-conditioned athlete from eSwim, Mariana Cabezas Garzon. Picking up steam here. The 34 mid split, so she's down at 109s.
Build a really good example, honestly, of building to this race, right? She stayed in the mix in the first 200. She made a bit of a move going into the 4, but now she's separating herself from the 400 onward. And I do think she's a good example of someone that kind of takes on that descending the 200s within her 800 freestyle. It's a nice little reset, building into the race for sure.
And doing a good job maintaining that lead and even extending that lead as she goes through the 500-meter mark at 5:45.0. 109s there on that 5th 100. Not far back is still Fleming in lane number 1. She's about 2 seconds back. Lapping a little bit slower than 110s. We're still on pace to go to new lifetime best, or at least under their seed times, which most of these youngsters is their lifetime best.
And Cabezas Garzon still keeping her legs in the mix throughout the race. She has not dropped them at all, which in an 800 is hard to do, and she's composed them throughout her tempo. It is a part of her armed motion, or one. They move as one. Sometimes when you see the fast tempo, the legs aren't really involved, but she's definitely created a rhythm that allows both to move at the same time.
Well, I think we saw that lots of legs from her in the 1500-meter freestyle earlier on this week. The signature of the way she swims as she comes comes to the 600. So quarters of this race is going to be done here at this wall as Kavizas Garzon turns at a 6:54.93. 34 high on that 50, a little bit less than 200 meters to go for your top swimmers here in this heat.
And this is where that next gear should come in. See a little bit of extra kick from all of our athletes, but it is, as I said, for a lot of them, their final race of these trials, so a little bit of an extra push.
And here we go, Mariana Kavizas-Garbon from E-Swim. 34.4, so on to that last quarter, and you see her dropping a half second on that first 50 from where she's been pacing. So a good strategic move. We'll see if she can maintain that pace now here. And come to the wall and get the bells rung, so that'll indicate 100 meters left to go for your race leader. Also seeing some of our other swimmers drop their pace now. Make their way for that final push. Here comes the bells. 100 meters left to go. As she turns around at an 8:04.3. So she is pacing to be underneath that sea time of hers. It stands at 9:16.88.
And there is that last gear.
There you go. You can
She's
see her.
really digging deep here with 75 to go.
Nice kick as she picks it up. See if the other swimmers can match that effort here as we have just over 50 meters left to go in this second heat of the women's 800-meter freestyle. As Brittany mentioned, these results will be combined with the results that we see tonight to get those overall placings. Look at this, 33.3. That's a second and a half drop on that last 50 for Kavizas Garzon.
I think she's got a bright future ahead of her. Really strong on the technical side. Also versatile, of course. Does butterfly, backstroke, IM, and now just dominating this heat in the distance freestyle.
Oh, we might even see her down and around 9:10, which would be a nice drop for our heat winner. And it is, look at this, 9:10.40. Mariana Kavizas Garzon, E-Swim, winning our second heat of the women's 800-meter freestyle.
And after doing the 200 butterfly, coming out with a 6-second drop in the 800 free. Really impressive double there, especially to do it after all the racing she's done.
Yeah, and she did it a nice even, well, actually it was a negative split swim, 4:35.5 and 4:34.9. A solid swim out of the youngster from Etobicoke. Finishing off heat number 2. Up next, one more to go. It's heat number 3 of the women's 800-meter freestyle.
And that heat all kind of eligible in that junior category as well. So we'll have to keep an eye on that junior time frame. There is a time final for the juniors tonight. So there'll be an A final with the top 10 times across any age group. And then there'll be a junior final with the remaining of the athletes in that junior age category.
There you go, you can see on your screen, that was Abigail McLeod from the Winskill Dolphins. She's 14 years of age and the top seed in our third and final heat this morning at 9:19.35.
We've talked a lot about the themes that come across from different events. This one being only 2 seconds separating the 7 athletes in this heat. So distance has the ability to, we see the lead change a lot. We see different athletes take off at different times, but to come in with an entry time only, you know, a second or 2 different than your entire heat creates a little bit of a mind game. Who can make the push? Who wants it more? Who wants to set the tone for this race? And speaking of setting the tone, right now it appears to be out in lane number 1 off like a rocket. Oh, Abby and McLeod though, just in the mix. That's a close first 50, 30.79 for Ruby, who I just spoke of. Ruby Kaler out in lane 1, and then Abigail McLeod in a 30.57 there in that first 50.
So pretty strong first outing through that first 50, and you can see on your screen how even this field is pretty early on. We'll see if this maintains itself throughout the race. It'll be very exciting if we get all of these swimmers, all 7 of them swimming together. Usually we see this field start to break itself apart. We'll go through the first 100 meters, 103.96. So pretty fast second 50s for these swimmers down at 33 mids.
Well, and Jason, we talk about kind of setting the tone at the beginning of the race, but we don't really have an idea of what they're going to be pacing and splitting usually until that 200 to 300 mark. That first 100 should come a little naturally. That first 50, of course, with the start, you're getting out fast. Seeing a 30 point isn't you know, shocking, but the second couple 50s is really where you set into that pace. You want to be starting to hit those times that you consistently hold across the 16 laps.
Well, and this is exactly right, Brittany. If you want to see 50 number 2 and 50 number 3 pretty close, and when you've got a big gap between them, it just means that the athlete hasn't quite settled on their pace. We're seeing a 34.4 out of McLeod on her third 50, so hopefully she can maintain this at 34 mid, so 109s, which would be really solid swimming for our swimmer. So she can hold under 35s. That's 9:20, and her best time is 9:19. Anything better than 35s means she is on pace to be underneath that C time of hers. This is the first quarter done now. She comes to the 200 and 2:13.33. She's lapping under 35, so I think she has settled herself down now and at 34 highs on pace.
Well, and from our previous heat, our time 9:10.40 from Marina Cabazas-Garzon. She is an international athlete, so not eligible for any Canadian national teams, but just putting her in the mix of that junior final. She's right in there, right? We have some entered with 9:02, 9:07, but it would put her about 4th or 5th in that junior final. So it's always just nice to see where these early heats are setting the tone and where they're kind of trying to challenge the rest of the athletes. You would definitely, if you're in these top finals, you would keep an eye on what the results are from the morning. You would make sure that you're notifying yourself of where that pace was set. It's always kind of I think most of us are also just fans of the sport. So if I'm at home after my warm-up this morning, I'm keeping an eye on what the other athletes are doing and making sure I'm aware of where the pace was set from the early heats. It's definitely been done before where a time from the heat gets onto the podium at night.
Absolutely, and you know, interestingly enough, you know, back in the day, they used to have B finals at the Olympics, way long time ago, way before your time, Brittany. And at the Los Angeles Games, I think we had a medalist swim in the 400-meter freestyle out of one of the B finals, or a podium finish. And obviously, it has to be done in the A final. But in this event, as the time finals, it doesn't really matter whether you're swimming in the morning or the night.
Do it all.
Combined, yep. So this is going to be 350 meters done for your race leader, McLeod, in lane number 4. Being challenged by lane number 7 now, is moving up nicely. That's Lilia Nuknov. Nuknov actually with the fastest 50 split there, 35.3 seconds. She sits a second back of McLeod in lane number 4.
Approaching the halfway point of this race, it's kind of a good benchmark for us to see where these athletes are at when it comes to their entry times. But things like negative splits are possible as well.
Well, and we did see that by Cabezas-Garzon in the previous heat. Let's see what we get out of these swimmers here as he turned at the halfway point. 4:36.0, so she's a half second back of where the race winner was in the previous heat. A second behind at 4:37.2 is lane number 7. That's Lilian Nuknov from Whitby Swimming. Nuknov coming in with a C time of 9:21.0. Moving up in lane number 5, Taylor McPherson. McPherson having a good go here. Brought a lot of speed into that halfway point to 400 and turned around, and she's right up in front now in lane number 5. And McPherson with the fastest 50 there, as she did in the previous length at 35.0. Turns in first by 1/10 of a second at 5:10.3, just ahead of McLeod at 5:12.4.
Yeah, that was a huge 50 for McPherson there. She went from third to first within 1:50, which you don't see too often. Only 14 years of age from the Nanaimo Riptide swim team.
And so she seems to have settled there after making a push on the first 50 of the back half of the race. Coming through now at the 500-meter mark. Still lapping nicely ahead of the rest of the field at 35.3, 5:47.6. So she's a second and a half up on McLeod in lane number 4. A little bit more than that up on Luknov in lane number 7.
And for both Luknov and McLeod, this is an opportunity. When someone starts to make a move, do you stay, do you challenge, or do you let them get away? And so this is where the toughness of an athlete really comes out. How much have they conserved their energy throughout the race while still kind of pushing the pace? It's going to be an exciting finish. We are privileged here to get to watch some really exciting racing, but don't count anyone out of this race yet.
go just 150 meters, 250 meters left. 35-2 split for McPherson. Doing a good job in lane number 5. Seems to be trying to break the field there. She is outsplitting the rest of them by at least 7/10 of a second. 6 or 7/10 as she comes now to the 600. So this is a 3/4 mark done. We'll see if we get any moves as we turn on to the last quarter of this race. And the Whitby Dolphins, Taylor McPherson turning first at 6:58.76. So she's 2.5 up on Luknov in lane number 7. Sitting in third is McLeod in lane number 4. Gonna have to make a move now if they want to get up and challenge McPherson. The race leader splitting 35.7 on that last 50.
Second through fifth, though, also really tightening up here. Ruby Keller out in lane number 1, who I mentioned on the first 50. She's kind of moved herself back in position of this race.
Well, Keller swimming in lane number 1 from the Kelowna Aqua Jets. She actually had a 50 that was equal to what McPherson did there. McPherson still holding steady at 35 mids.
And they're gearing up for the best part of this race. When you hear the bell, you know you only have 2 laps to go. Final 100.
And we saw the winners of the previous 2 heats really pick it up when they heard that bell and they went onto the, and 700 meters were done. There was a good pickup by both of them. So we'll see if we can get that out of McPherson here in lane number 5. Comes into the 700. There are the bells, 8:09.94. So her entry time is 9:19.52. She does need 1:09.6 or better to go a new lifetime best. So we want to see 250s here at 34.8 or better.
And I'm just seeing out of the corner of my eye, too, Josh Liendo over by the Nyack Club team, the signing autographs before his final tonight. And it's really special when we're at an event like this to see the next generation so inspired by the athletes here and their performances. And the smallest gestures go the longest ways.
Yeah, and I think that best example we've talked about a number of times with that picture of a very young Summer McIntosh here at the 2016 Olympic trials, getting autographs from Penny Alexiak. Now McIntosh turn to be giving out autographs and inspiring that next generation. And it is going to be lane number 5, Taylor McPherson, edging pretty close to her lifetime best as she comes to the finish, 9:19.05, just under, so a good finish for her. Good finish for our women's 800-meter freestyle this morning.
And she did a nice head nod there, happy with the time. Not elated, no massive celebration like we saw a couple days ago in the men's 800, but she's definitely satisfied, a new personal best. And she closes out our program here this morning.
Well, just about. We do have a 50-meter freestyle swim-off coming up, and that's not unusual in the 50s, in particular the 50-meter freestyle. So we're just going to wait and get that information on that one before we close out the morning. Should have that for you very shortly, but all of our regular events are done. Now 150 left to go. Okay, so I'm just getting a little bit of an update. We might have 2 swim-offs, and apparently it's for 10th and final place in our junior final, 10th and final place in our B final. So very exciting. It's not for, apparently not for an alternate position, so this actually carries a bit of meaning. You get yourself into one of those 2 finals tonight. And as Whitney said earlier, the swim-off, whether or not you do manage to get into one of the finals or in the alternate or an alternate not getting called in, you're getting an opportunity for another swim, which is all everyone is looking for here anyway.
Well, and in the 50 freestyle, right, there's so many small things you can work on, whether you wanted to change something about your start, whether you were a little bit off in your streamline in the entry, whether you're timing off. Like, there is the smallest margin for error in this race. So any opportunity to race it again is another repetition, is another chance. And it's also a really good opportunity to make the most of those fine-tuning details, and maybe it's to the touch they were upset about, or maybe they didn't build into the race, or maybe they took a breath when they didn't need to take a breath. So I definitely think there's no harm in getting a second chance here. And we're not swimming off for alternates today, we're swimming off for that spot. So it truly is a really good chance.
And looks like, not as we usually see in the middle of the pool in lanes 4 and 5. They appear to be choosing lanes 2 and 3.
Well, I think it's because it's going to happen at the same heat. So the other swim off is going to happen a few lanes over.
Very observant Brittany. And I have seen it before, though, when there are swim-offs, and you don't necessarily have to go in 4 and 5, and someone chooses what they perceive as the fast lane from the morning.
That's so fun. I was someone that loved lane 2, so I get that. So I'm in lane 2 in my club pool. I also made my first Olympic final in lane 2. So there are certain superstitions or places people feel comfortable, but it does appear we're gonna see 2 swim-offs in the same heat. They can push each other, which is great. Athletes in 5 and 6, also athletes in 2 and 3. Make sure we get their names over to you shortly.
So we are just waiting for clarification as to who is swimming when. Not entirely certain, but it
looks like one of the swim-offs is no longer needed. Maybe there was a disqualification. Sorry, a scratch. Sometimes that happens.
Okay, it looks like we're not going to have that swim off for the B final. We've got a happy swimmer over there from the UBC Thunderbirds, so maybe he is in. This is for 10th and final position in our junior final now. See them listed in lanes 4 and 5, but they appear to be swimming in lanes 5 and 6. So we'll either change the scoreboard or get them to move over.
Alum Kurgel and Hammond Rangeloff for the junior final. They are going to adjust.
Okay, so they are moving to 4 and 5 now.
They're not sure. We're all learning in the moment. Okay, so we see Rangeloff in lane 5, Alum in lane 4. They looked up at the board to confirm where they were to go, so I'm confident that those are the athletes in each lane as they get set for this junior final swim-off.
All right, so 24:04 this morning is the time that they did. It's already a best time for Rangeloff. Just over his lifetime best was Kurgi. So this is for 10th, and this is for final spot in the junior final. So very exciting for these swimmers, because whoever gets their hand on the wall, regardless of the time, will get into that junior final tonight. So lane number 4. Alum Kurgi, and in lane number 5, Cayman Rangeloff. Both swimmers 24.04 this morning, and a good start and off to a quick first 25 is Kurgi. He's at the bottom of your screen if you're looking at our 2 swimmers in the middle of the pool between our yellow lane lines. He's got the advantage, but here comes Rangeloff towards the end. It's going to be very close again. 23.70 and 23.92. So some very good swims. Alum Kurgi taking the win in this one. It's the new best time for him at 23.70 in a swim off for 10th and final position in tonight's junior final. So a reminder that our pre-show is at 5:45 p.m. tonight. 6 p.m. start for finals. It's going to be on CBC Sports Online or on the GEM app. We've got great and a lot of great swimming to come tonight, Brittany.
We do. We get to watch Summer McIntosh in the 200 butterfly. We get to watch Finley Knox try to qualify an individual event at the Games, of course, in his best event, and maybe another potential getting under that time. And speaking of the 50 free right there, that's going to be another really exciting one for Leendo. I think that Canadian record might be in jeopardy.
So a reminder to come in and tune in for those fine swims that we're going to see. Every chance you get to see world record holder Summer McIntosh is pretty exciting. World champion Finley Knox, as Brittany said, is up in the 200 IM, still a second spot up for grabs. A reminder, 5:45 p.m. for the pre-show, 6 p.m. start on CB Sports Online or on the GEM app. For Brittany McLean, I'm Jason Pratt, wrapping up Day 6 preliminaries here at the 2024 Bell Olympic and Paralympic Trials presented by Bell. See you all again this evening.
Natation Canada tient à remercier ses partenaires. Swimming Canada would like to thank our partners. Le gouvernement du Canada. The Government of Canada. Speedo, votre partenaire de natation de confiance de votre premier saut à chaque traction. Speedo, your trusted swim partner from your first splash through every stroke. Les producteurs de poulets du Canada, fiers partisans et protéines officielles de Natation Canada. Chicken Farmers of Canada, proud supporter and official protein of Swimming Canada. All Tides, fiers de soutenir la natation canadienne. All Tides, proud to support Canadian swimming. Air Canada, transporteur aérien officiel des essais olympiques et paralympiques. Air Canada, official airline of the 2024 Olympic and Paralympic swimming trials.
I have a disability, but I'm not fragile. My first big hit was a rush. It made me feel alive in a way only sports can. Because of partners like Vel, I get to feel it on the world stage. And now I get to share that feeling with the next generation.
Program has ended. Program has ended.